My name's Alyssa Vinson. I'm the residential horticulture agent at the Manatee County Extension Office. I'm going to talk to you today about building a logic model to make your program easier to evaluate and better able to determine your success. Before we get too in-depth with logic models, I just want to take a quick second to talk to you about what extension is. We are a function of the land-grant university system, which here in the state of Florida is the University of Florida and FAMU. Those two universities work in conjunction with their local county governments to provide research-based information to communities. Here at IFAS, our mission is to make that knowledge and research-based information accessible, relevant, applicable to the people in our communities, with the ultimate goal being to sustain and enhance the quality of human life. And we do this through a number of different types of programs, and please reach out to your local extension office for more information. So you may have been asked to produce a logic model in relation to a project for a grant, or maybe you are working with a local organization to design a new community outreach program, whether or not it's a one-time program or a recurring program. A logic model can be a really useful tool for determining the success of any type of program that you're designing. At its simplest, a logic model is just an outline or blueprint for a program or project that has specific goals in mind. And it shows a sequence of activities and then associated outcomes with those activities leading up to your end goal. They can be simple or they can be very in-depth. Some logic models will have a situational statement with a lot of narrative and research-based information, along with certain types of specific activities that lead to outcomes, that lead to long-term outcomes for specific segments of an audience. Or you might have a more simple project and you're still looking to successfully evaluate that project, and you could have a much simpler logic model. All logic models are going to have some or all of the components that you see listed there. So program activities, short, intermediate, or long-term outcomes, assumptions, external factors, and then you may also have kind of resources necessary, stakeholders, audiences identified, things like that. So why is it important to use a logic model? Why will some organizations ask you for one if you're in kind of a grant proposal process? And really at its best function, a logic model is going to allow you to determine whether or not your project has been successful. And really good logic models are going to show you barriers to success, as well as potential collaborators, necessary resources, as well as providing you with the information necessary to design an evaluation tool. And that evaluation tool is what you're going to use to determine whether or not your program is successful. So we have a pretty basic understanding of what a logic model is and why it might be a useful tool for us to create. So how do we go about building them? We're not going to go too deep into the process, but I wanted to kind of show you a few key steps that you're going to need in order to build your logic model. And again, this is a logic model that can be used for any type of program or project, whether it's an educational project, whether it's a restoration project, whether it's a volunteer project. Any type of project can have a logic model developed for it, as long as there's some kind of desired outcome that you're trying to achieve. So that's the very first step, right? Is identifying those desired outcomes. What do you want to happen as the result of this project or activity that you are undertaking? They might be short outcomes, they might be medium-term outcomes, or they might be long-term outcomes. Long-term outcomes generally are associated with social, economic, or environmental changes. So, for instance, a long-term outcome of a nutrition program might be this community will see a drastic reduction in heart disease, right? That's a big picture, long-term outcome. A medium-term outcome associated with that kind of a program might be these institutions and schools have adopted healthy eating habits and walking breaks throughout the day, something like that. And a short-term outcome for that type of project might be participants in a learning activity understand what a healthy plate looks like, a healthy plate of food, right? And you might notice as you go about the process of building your logic model that there might be different outcomes for each audience group. You may have different groups that are reached through this same project. So you may have folks that attend a learning activity. You may have families of those individuals. You may have organizations that are associated with the program or project that you're putting together. So you may have different audience groups that are kind of incorporated into these outcomes. Once you've determined what you want to happen, you want to create a logical sequence of events. So what does the research say? What does kind of the previous projects that are similar to this, has anybody done this before? How do we get to this desired outcome? What has to happen in order for these outcomes to occur? What activities or specific pieces of information or resources do my audience need in order for these outcomes to be achieved? Is there research that you can rely on? Is there information already out there that I can draw from to show A plus B equals C? And then the last thing that you're going to want to do as you build the steps of your logic model is going to be to seek input from others. You want to review your logic model with outside collaborators, stakeholders, peers, and then really take their comments to heart and modify that logic model based on the comments provided. Logic models can take many different forms as far as their appearance is concerned. There are lots of tools out there that exist for creating logic models. You can build them in PowerPoint using templates that are available online. You could simply use an Excel spreadsheet if you'd like to. You can get out and get a little bit more creative and search for mind maps. And mind maps are a really good way to not just kind of put your logic model together in a logical sequence of events, but you can also identify places where there might be connections within different aspects of your logic model, or maybe ways to pull in additional audience members or resources. All of these types of tools are going to be good, whatever works best for you and in the review process of whatever project you're working on. So you don't want to build a really complicated mind map if you're going to be sharing it with a wide public audience. You're going to want to create something that's a little bit simpler that people are going to be able to provide comments on. And if you're submitting a project that requires a logic model for a grant, they may have already provided you with a template for your logic model. So then go ahead and use that. In conclusion, I just want to say that logic models can be a really useful tool. There's tons of great information out there. You can really go in depth with kind of understanding the different components of a logic model, building these logic models. But to give you just kind of a brief overview, please go ahead and check out, there's this great publication that was created by Dr. Glenn Israel. The link is here on this page. You can also search for the title there, WC 106 Logic Model Basics, and it'll also pull up, it's a quick 2.5 page long kind of primer on logic models and how you can use them to help enhance your programs. I highly encourage you, if you are developing programs or projects, to work in this logic model, see where you can build certain areas. It's a really great tool, again, for finding resources, identifying potential collaborators, recognizing kind of synergies between different areas of your projects, and then it is absolutely necessary in order for you to develop an evaluation tool that can then determine the success of your program or project. So if you have questions on building logic models and you'd like to reach out to me, I'm happy to answer your questions. My email address is there, and if I can't answer your question, I'll get somebody from the university who can. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.